Well, I'm delighted to be about to introduce to you the lead writer for Threefold Games, creator of Windrush Tales and Before I Forget, journalist and game developer. Game developer? What are we doing here? Why are we here? Game developer, Chella Ramanan.
Thank you. So I am a game developer. I also write about games, sometimes for The Guardian and for GameIndustry.com. Welcome to my talk about Afrofuturism and Black Panther and how to make meaningful black characters in your games. Haley's talk earlier, she said that she was really considerate and said she made hers a little bit short in case someone ran over. I didn't do that, so I'm going to just hurry through this and hope we have time for questions at the end. If not, you can ask me stuff in the pub. So let's get on. So I've done my introduction, and in February 2018, something really exciting happened. There we go. Press hard is the trick to this one. And that thing was Black Panther. And just to get a sort of gauge of the room, I won't judge you. Well, I kind of will a little bit. So can I get a show of hands who has actually seen Black Panther? Ooh, that's pretty good. I knew John wouldn't have. I knew it. If you don't like superhero movies, if you've got superhero fatigue, this is actually the most sort of socially and politically aware of those ones. It's aware of the world outside their own universe. So it is one that's worth dipping into, but hopefully the talk will convince you more. So for those who don't know, Black Panther is Marvel Comics' first black superhero. He was first launched in 1966. And this is the first solo film for a black superhero in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, so don't at me with Blade. It's been done. Black Panther happened, and this is how black people reacted. We were excited. So just to underline why this film was so important and created this reaction, this was a black superhero in an almost entirely black-led film, and that is both in front of the camera and behind the camera, and all the design elements, the music, everything. This was a black movie through and through. And it felt like it was our moment, and we gloried in it. The feeling of representation was incredible. I saw tweets from people saying, like, wow, this must be what white people feel like all the time. So as well as meaning something to black people, people of colour, and lots of other marginalised groups, Black Panther also brought Afrofuturism to the mainstream. And this is what happened. And the sort of white mainstream media was like, what is this? So leading up to Black Panther, I saw this kind of flurry of interest in Afrofuturism. I saw columns and idiot guides in places I never thought I would. So The Guardian, BuzzFeed, everyone was kind of interested in this thing. So on a little side note, I actually wrote this talk a lot earlier in the year for Feral Vector. And there are some people who've heard this talk or who are here now who've heard this already, and so thank you for coming again. When I originally wrote it, I was riding on this crest of a wave of optimism that came after watching the film. And it felt like things might change because Black Panther had made a lot of white folks a lot of money, so now they were going to value our stories, right? Like now we were going to see more black films and stories in all kinds of media, right? Wrong. So the fact that I struggled to find a showing of Spike Lee's Black Klansman because I live outside London tells me that not much has changed. And the fact that Boots Riley's successful black comedy struggled to get distribution in Europe at all because black films don't sell tells me that not much has changed. Oops. No, I don't want to do that. How do I scroll down the thing? Okay. Lost my cursor. And so basically instead of a wave of black representation, we got this, which we got a nice little preview to. And so this joke probably ages me horrendously. But I think the sort of like white dad rock band kind of is quite good at representing what the status quo is like. So the point is that black stories still struggle to get the platform they deserve because they're not seen as universal. they're just black. Even though Black Panther showed us that that's not the case, that these stories can have mainstream appeal and can feel universal. But before I go into Afrofuturism, let's take a look at the representation of black people in pop culture, including games. So absence is probably the overall theme. So we all know the eternal problem of the all-white male hero who is everywhere. He's seen as the default. He represents us all, apparently, from Jesus to Harry Potter. It's a it's a particularly charming picture of Jesus, I think. And yeah, you think of our children's stories, which are, our introduction to consuming stories, and the protagonists are cut from the same white cloth, and it's usually a middle class and a privately educated one. So even if the character is African, such as Cleopatra, she is cast as a blue-eyed white woman played by the likes of Elizabeth Taylor, or you could fast forward and it would be Angelina Jolie. So to illustrate how pervasive this erasure is, I found a list that Empire magazine made, the top 100 greatest movie characters ever list. And of 100, only 3 were black, and all of those 3 were men. In fact, there were more non-human characters than people of any colour on that list. So basically, Yoda makes the list, but Jackie Brown doesn't. So in short, our literature is white, so are our movies and TV, and of course, our games. So black video game characters tend to fall into the tried and tested tropes established by Hollywood. So first up on this list is the loud sidekick, with Cole from Gears of War and Barrett in Final Fantasy VII. And the loud sidekick is just that. He does what he says on the tin. And he tends to be this huge physical specimen, which harks back to this idea of the black man as a body rather than a person. They are loud, they're often the comic relief, they often speak in a sort of stereotypical way. They offer brawn, but no brains or nuance. And if you get women, you might get women in films more than games. You don't tend to see this character so much in games, but if you do, it will add a bit of sass. And then you get the criminal. Interestingly, 2 of the characters I have on here, one of them is just racist, and that's Mad Jack in Heavy Rain. But 2 of those are considered really good black video game characters, and they are, but the one that I was most disappointed by was Lee Everett in The Walking Dead. I only got around to playing that this year, and the way that we're introduced to him is as a black man sitting in the back of a police car. So we don't actually get to see that he's a positive father figure to Clementine until much later. We don't get to see the softness and the nuances of him as a character. We're introduced to him as a criminal again. And I just think they could have found a different way to add that central core conflict. Because essentially he has a secret that he's keeping from the other characters, and I think it didn't have to be that he was a murdering black man who, this crime of passion, which sort of ties into that idea of black men as being sort of sexual predators who aren't in control of their impulses. So I was quite disappointed with that intro to Lee. The next thing is the oppressed Negro, and this is actually quite a new space for games. And Mafia 3 was praised for its writing. However, the story of oppression is a narrative space that people feel comfortable seeing black characters. If you think of films like 12 Years a Slave and The Help, whilst they're important stories to tell, they reinforce the idea of black struggle. And they often include a white saviour, so that'll be the sort of liberal white civil rights lawyer, or Emma Stone's character in The Help. And what those characters do is they suggest that black people can't help themselves. So to anyone thinking of penning a civil rights struggle story, just a reminder that black oppression is real and it's lived every day, and it is not a metaphor to be used to add gravitas to your flimsy robot story. The trouble with this trope is that it also keeps black people in the past whilst erasing us from other historical stories. If our only history is slavery and oppression, and our present is as the criminal, sidekick, or exotic other, then what about our future? So when it comes to the future, we actually just disappear. So it's like black people didn't exist until slavery, and then we disappear again. And then there's like the 60s and there's civil rights, so we're back. And then we kind of disappear unless it's a story about jazz or hip hop. But once we get to the future, we've just like, I don't know, we must be on another planet all the time. We're just not there. And cyberpunk is probably the worst genre for whitewashing and sexism and just about everything. And Blade Runner 2049 actually took several steps backwards with regards to representation compared to the original, which was made in like the 80s, so that's quite a feat. There were fewer people of colour on screen on the film overall. I think in terms of black representation, there was one prostitute and one Fagin-styled child slaver. So please refer to previous slide on that for notes on that one. Sadly, games take the lead of Hollywood once again with the sort of the blue aliens trope. And yeah, you can see that in things like Mass Effect, Avatar, and Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. I know she's green. So these blue aliens are often coded as black or indigenous cultures, yet they're acted by black actors or voice actors. And this is just another form of erasure because you're not seeing black faces on screen, you're hiding them behind blue faces. In Mass Effect Andromeda, the Angara were a kind of interesting culture, but then they slapped on this slavery narrative, and please refer to previous slide for notes on that one. So Afrofuturism is a response to the absence of black stories. So what is Afrofuturism? Well, Ytasha L. Womack describes Afrofuturism as an intersection between black culture, technology, the imagination, and liberation. Afrofuturism was the response of black artists and musicians in the 1950s who were looking for a way of imagining possible black futures through a black lens. It incorporates technology, art, politics, activism, philosophy, and mysticism. So, so these are some of the key figures who in Afrofuturism, and all of these artists express themes of space travel as a way of escaping oppression on Earth. From Sun Ra, one of the key pioneers of Afrofuturism, he was an avant-garde musician, and he spoke of a dream he had where an alien culture visited him and promised that space was the place that could offer sanctuary from the struggles black people faced on Earth. And then you have artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat. Octavia E. Butler is like the auntie of Afrofuturist literature. And then there are sort of musicians still today, the most obvious one being Janelle Monáe, who has her sort of android alter ego. But Missy Elliott, she's played with these kinds of themes in a lot of her videos, and Janet and Michael Jackson obviously have played with these themes of black people in space. So out of Afrofuturism came the idea of the Afronaut, and it's a really powerful one. The black space traveller journeying across the cosmos in search of liberation from the violence and oppression on our own planet, seeking spiritual enlightenment in the stars. Afrofuturism is about an optimistic vision that challenges creators to look beyond black suffering, to imagine a better tomorrow. Black Panther offers a really good overview of Afrofuturism and its key elements. So these are some of the important elements, so post-colonialism, gender equality, African settings and aesthetics, and representing the full black experience, but please note, not just black people in space. So let's unpack how the film achieved some of these things. So Wakanda is a fictional African nation that has never been colonized. It is also the richest country on the planet because it is the source of the valuable mineral vibranium. And it's worth noting, this is all, like fictional in the Marvel. Just so don't try and book tickets there or anything. So it's worth noting that Captain America's shield is made of vibranium. So that means that his shield only exists because of Wakanda. Wakanda is also the most technologically advanced nation on Earth. So this is where the rest of the Marvel universe comes when they need some tech know-how, when they're stumped, they come to this African nation. And this is far from the Africa we usually see on charity fundraiser posters. No famine, no war, well, until Infinity War, but there's not an internal sort of struggle caused by colonialism. There's no dependency on Western intervention. And this subverts the West's idea that developing nations are somehow unable to progress. But that idea in itself, of course, ignores the long, painful legacy of empire and colonialism, which persists today. So the impact of colonialism didn't end with the abolition of slavery. Just ask the resource-rich nation of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Its resources add up to trillions of dollars, but its citizens remain some of the poorest on the planet as multinational corporations raid its mineral deposits. So Wakanda is a vision of an alternative for a country like that. However, it is interesting to note that while Wakanda hasn't been colonized, it's not free from the impact of colonialism because its isolationist politics are a direct response to that threat. In the real world, although Ethiopia was never colonized, it feels the impact of colonialism deeply. Black scientists. So the Black Scientist is a rare sight in pop culture or even in our school textbooks. The film Hidden Figures, about the black female mathematicians who were integral to the space program at NASA in the 1960s, shows us just how many of our stories are hidden from us. So before anyone shouts about Uhura, yes, she is an astronaut, but she's also just a glorified switchboard operator. So as a child, even though she's important sort of historically in terms of, black women being on screen, mainstream America, sort of primetime TV and all that, I didn't aspire to be Uhura when I was a child because I sussed that she didn't get much to do and she wasn't something to aspire to. But in contrast, if I was a child today and I'd just watched Black Panther, I have Shuri, who's the sister of T'Challa, and T'Challa is the king of Wakanda, and he is Black Panther. So Shuri is his younger sister, and she's the most intelligent person on the planet. And her scientific discoveries are vital to the success of Wakanda. In fact, her science develops the Black Panther suit. Everything the city is built on is as a result of her scientific discoveries. So from the transport system they have, their communication beads, their ships, the fact that Wakanda is hidden behind this shield. Shuri did it all, and she is a teenage black girl. Which brings us neatly on to gender equality and the Dora Milaje. The Dora Milaje are an all-female elite fighting force and protectors of the king. In the comics, they began as this kind of worrying harem that just followed T'Challa around, like when he was in his downtime, he just had these wafty women around him. But then Christopher Priest came onto the comics and he kind of changed them into the strong, influential warriors we see in the film. So Wakanda is basically built by really powerful black women in positions of power and influence. They are seen as ambassadors, tribal leaders, warriors, and when T'Challa chooses his away team for a mission, he takes the head of the Dora and Lupita Nyong'o's character, So, I mean, it would have been like, I mean, the guys in that film are like ripped. So it would have been a fair point if he'd taken one of them. He took these two really strong women, and I thought that was just a really impactful choice for the story. And so compared to the real world where black women are under constant erasure or attack, this is a really refreshing and liberating world. And that's part of what makes Wakanda so compelling. This is how it could be, how it should be. And even the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe fails to be this progressive, let alone the rest of mainstream entertainment or the world. So, black heroes and villains. It's worth noting that your black characters don't have to be brilliant at everything and paragons of virtue. We're not aiming for the black Wesley Crusher. Black Panther shows the layers of the black experience. The African experience differs from that of the diaspora, just as the black British one differs from the African American one, or the Caribbean or Kenyan one, or the Nigerian one. We are not a hive mind. We don't agree on how to approach things. In the figures of T'Challa and Killmonger, we see those opposing views. They are basically Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And in the figure of T'Challa, we don't even agree with everything he does. Killmonger challenges him and questions the decisions that Wakanda has made. You know, the isolationist politics means they essentially abandoned the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. They left them to to suffer under oppression in America. So the film shows the layers of the black experience and how it's not stuck in the past. We are here now and we will be here tomorrow. And so I am asking you to explore those nuances in your black characters, and Black Panther shows you how. That's me. Thank you for listening. I don't know if...
We have time for maybe a couple of questions, if you like.
Okay, yeah, sure. We have time for a couple of questions.
So it's great. Thank you very much. That was a really cool talk. I really enjoyed that. So you came up as to characters that are obviously bad, and that's relatively easy to do. Are there any characters that, say, a white man like myself could look to as a kind of example of, say, black people, particularly black women, in the case of that further erasure, done well?
Well, I think if you watch Black Panther, you can see loads of them.
I've seen it, and I absolutely adored the film on a number of levels.
Yeah.
I was thinking about more about like kind of games as well.
In games, no, that's a challenge.
If the answer is no, that's a perfectly valid response. I'm asking you. So,
Virginia, I think it has two black female protagonists who are done really well. Sort of nuanced storytelling in there. Who have a really great relationship and come from different places. That was a good one. Okay.
And maybe one more? Oh, in the back.
Hi, thank you. This is a hard question, and I notice I'm scared of asking it, so I'm going to.
Okay.
The company that we work for is based in the Netherlands. It's a very white company, and we've actually been looking into creating games including black characters that are actually interesting, but we are scared to do so because we're scared of doing it wrong. What is your opinion on that? Like, we are really struggling with it, so I don't know what your view is on that.
I think probably the first thing to do is engage with things written by the people you're trying to write about. Read black literature, watch black cinema. You can go to websites like Writers of Colour and Gyal Dem, and just see the conversations that the black community has amongst itself about things, because it will be about hair a lot. It's about black women. We talk about our hair a lot. And, you know, just the sort of microaggressions that we come up against that people won't notice. I suppose like something I tweeted recently that I think people didn't realise that was for the first time they've introduced different shades of brown ballet shoes for professional ballet dancers, point shoes. And up until this point, black ballet dancers have had to put makeup on their shoes to match their skin tone. And so, yeah, so just like in 2018, they've only just thought, maybe we'll make some brown ballet shoes. So it's just things like that that you won't be aware of because you don't have to consider it. And yeah, you just have to go into the spaces for the people you're trying to write about. Does that answer?
I'm afraid that's all the time we have. I'm sorry that these questions will have to be asked elsewhere in the event. Please join me in saying a huge thank you to Chella Ramanan.